Welcome, friends, to episode 220 of Color Magic, your Magic Gaming podcast, where we talk about all types of issues that affect gamers at and away from their gaming tables and computers. I'm your host, Daquan Watson, and for 220 episodes, just a good number to wrap up the year on, I got my man Brian Allen. How's it going, dude?
Reasonably decent. Christmas was good. We definitely needed a win this year after last year when we spent most of the holidays in the hospital. So this
Dude,
is much
I ain't gonna
better.
lie. When your wife posted that y'all had somebody go back to the hospital, I was like, yo, if this happens again.
Right. That was thankfully just follow ups to testing and stuff. So nothing major.
Yeah, I saw those pictures and I went, man, not again. Who is it this time?
Right. Everybody here right now is reasonably healthy. Thank goodness.
That's good, man. That's good to hear. Yeah, this year is pretty wild. So we're going to do a lot of recapping in this episode. So lots of things to cover throughout the year. So we're going to cover some of our regular topics we would cover, and then we're going to do a yearly recap here because it was an insane amount of stuff that happened in 2023. But before we get to that, got to tell you about our sponsor over at CoolStuffInc.com. Go use code DRAGON over there to save you 5%. They even have a sale running right now, I believe, through New Year's on Monday. So you can pick up a bunch of stuff even cheaper than normal. So go pay them some love. Use our code. Let them know you love us. Leave a note in your order, whatever you want to do. But yeah, save yourself some money there. Also, you can support the show directly over at patreon.com/colormagic. You can be just like Keith Page, one of our newest members. Thank you so much. And you can go to colorofmtg.com/shop if you want to pick up some merch. All right, let's get into our lead story here because this is one I didn't even find out until earlier today before we started recording. But good luck high five. For those you don't know, led by Maria Bartoldi, who was one of the announcers on all the major Magic coverage and stuff. She's been in the Magic community forever. Actually, Maria actually has Emmys, believe it or not. Like, she's for real decorated. Like, she's legit.
What did she get Emmys for?
Yeah, she was I believe a newscaster in the Midwest or something.
Okay.
And yeah, like, so just crazy. Like, that's why when I work with her, I'm like, you're at least a real professional. I'm just like some bum that gets to talk on gaming, you know? Like, she's got credentials. But what they found out, unfortunately, was they kind of came into their offices after Christmas and saw that their studios had a break-in. And unfortunately, they took a lot of merchandise, like high-end cameras, high-end cables, microphones. Like, they just, honestly, I don't even know if anybody who knew particularly what they had other than just, these are things that are probably going to sell. You know what I mean? Like, they just took what was not strapped down effectively. But it came to almost $10,000 worth of stuff, which is a pretty damn big haul.
It wouldn't surprise me if somebody knew. That just seems that
I would say somebody probably knew what their studio was and what they did, but
yeah.
you know, I don't think they even have to know that, like, and cameras are expensive. You don't have to know which ones. You just take all of them.
Exactly.
You know, like,
you hit a studio, you know it's going to have certain things in it.
Yep. So what they did is they started a GoFundMe, and in less than a day, it looks like they hit their goal. So they set it at 10,000 to be able to replace all their stuff because they said for some reason, like, their insurance wasn't going to cover a bunch of it or whatever. But they got to 10,605 with 152 donors. So that's actually pretty cool. Like, not like, is off the air, I was trying to figure out how we want to describe it. It's not really a happy ending, but it's at least a resolution to a thing during the holidays that could have
It's
been
good.
way,
They'll be able to, yeah.
Yeah, it could have been way more stressful. Could have just been a crazy situation. I mean, technically, they're not even going to be able to make content for a couple weeks unless they do it from
Right.
their phones and stuff, or, you know, whatever they have left over until the new parts get here, because they have to order it and probably not going to get here for a week or whatever. Then you got to reset everything up and test everything.
Yeah.
And,
oh my God.
yeah, put in all your settings and, you know, all that. So it's tough, man. And that's the thing I don't think people realize when you take stuff from people like this, like, it is their livelihood. So
I think they realize that they don't give a crap.
Yeah, you're
They're
right.
thieves.
You're right. They probably don't care.
livelihood.
And it's tough because they don't just lose the money from having to replace stuff, or in this case, at least got money to replace it. Like, it's the money they can't make now for the
Yeah.
next 2 or 3 weeks while they're getting all the parts in, getting stuff. Hell, if they even can get the same things, right?
Yeah.
Because some stuff's going to be out of
Criminals
stock.
absolutely know they're putting you out. They don't care.
That's fair.
Former police reporter here have had to had to read many interviews where they were like, "Hey, why did you even do this?" And there's oftentimes zero remorse about the crime. Sadly,
Yeah, I guess they just figure it's them or you, and they'd rather it be you.
yeah,
You know, like that's tough. But I'm glad at least the community came together and took care of them because that could have been a bad situation. I mean, I probably have like a quarter of that in my studio, and it would still suck if I lost it and had to replace
exactly.
it. So I couldn't imagine, having to replace 10K plus worth of stuff. But yeah, just figured we'd start with that. But now we're gonna hop into the soapbox because we have a couple of things to talk about. And I'm gonna start by I don't even know how to best go about this without just sounding like because I'm not angry. I'm not even really bothered. Just more of an awareness of this is the type of stuff that still goes on. That last week, obviously, we had the Jonathan Major news. He got convicted, all that. And man, like I started getting all kinds of related comments to that. Some people just doing the, all black people look the same and like, dumb Jonathan Majors comments like I should be the new Kang, blah, blah, whatever. I'm like, all right, sure. But then even the follow-up of like, "Oh, so what did you think about the news?" or whatever, and I'm like, "Why do I have an opinion about like if he did it, he's guilty." Like I don't care. Like we talked about it on the show. Listen to the show. Like I don't know what you want me to do with this. And then I had people even following up calling me a woke militant, which I thought was a kind of amusing because like one, if you stroll into any black person space, like, well, obviously we're going to come off as woke because what that side we will say defines as woke is going to be pretty much a lot of what you live.
Yeah, like
Right? So like,
if you even say racism in America is a thing, you're a woke liberal. That's just
yeah.
the bottom line.
So that was kind of weird. I
Even
was
if
like,
you would experience racism, they promise you didn't.
yeah,
You're playing the race card.
it was a very weird thing. I don't know. And then like being referred to as militant, I was just like, on what basis? Like, I
By
mean,
the
if
basis that you acknowledge that America has a racism problem, you're militant. Just even
yeah, I
bringing that
guess
to the forefront. They said the
someone
correct response is that if the police brutalize you, it's because you're guilty and not because you're black, as what was said in Living Color back in the day.
fair. I just found it amusing because I'm like, I would like there's a lot of things you can describe me as, and they would probably be accurate. But militant, I would just like, really though? Like, all right
I,
then, cool.
by the definition of somebody who, like you said, when you have a side that believes that racism isn't a thing, by comparison, yeah, militant.
But I bring it up to say like this is the stuff that goes around, right? It's people just spouting stuff pointlessly, needlessly, trying to needle somebody, trying to take shots, trying to make bad bottom of the barrel jokes. Like it's still around. Like even at the holidays, people are still doing it. Hell, I had some extra ones pop up on the holidays. Partly because they probably think they're going to leave the comments, nobody's going to delete them, and they'll be there for other people to see it. Only I check my stuff from my phone, so I just delete it, and then I hide user from channel. So it's like, I mean, it's not that hard to keep up with, right? Like, but it's just people doing it, and we're seeing it in different message groups with like bots that are going around spouting stuff right now because they think the admins aren't going to be around to check it. Like, it sucks. It's just part of what you got to deal with if you're going to put yourself out there. The thing that amazes me though is that those people really think they're doing something, and I'm like, who, like, whose mind are you trying to change? Like, who are you expecting to laugh at your joke? Like, I like
The other racists.
yeah, but nobody's gonna see it. That's the whole point. I'm just like, what? Like, that'd be like me going into some woman's space and making a bad sexist joke. Like, that's probably not the environment where other people that agree with that sentiment are going to see it. So, like, what really comes of that other than you just getting banned from the channel and never getting to see the comments anyway? because that's what's going to happen 90% of the time or better, I
It's like
imagine.
not everybody does that. Like I don't, for example.
Oh man, I off my folks. Like if you come in like that, I ain't even got time for you. It just makes it
Well,
easy.
lest anybody accuse me of making stuff up, like here it is.
No, like
This
now
is
there's some that if they are worth sharing or discussing, I will leave those so there's proof that it exists. But on like a day-to-day basis, like I said, the bad dumb like Jonathan Majors jokes or whatever, like, nah, those all just got deleted and booted. I ain't got time for it. But anyway, that was my week. Let's pass this over and see what you got for the soapbox.
all right. As we've been talking about, Warner Brothers Discovery is just deleting and destroying all manner of content out there. And recently, they came for Sony and a bunch of people that bought Warner Brothers TV shows. All it looks like documentaries and reality shows specifically. They made Sony take all of it down, and of course, that's part of the problem we talked about with the ownership of digital content. It's out there in the cloud, in the ether. You don't have a CD, a DVD, or anything practical. So when WB decides they don't want you to have it anymore, you don't have it anymore. And also, around the same time that happened, in an unrelated glitch, a bunch of people got locked out of their Sony PlayStation account through no fault of their own, came back, saw a bunch of their content, and I'm sure many of them probably thought, "Oh, okay, this is probably part of the glitch. Yeah, could you go ahead and put up my, I don't know, trying to think of a Discovery reality show. Deepest, deadliest catch is probably. I started to say deepest catch. I think deadliest catch. I believe is
Yeah,
Discovery
deadliest
on the.
catch.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Bring back season 1 of Deadliest Catch. No, that wasn't part of the hack. That was that was the Warner Brothers Discovery out here. Hide your kids, hide your wives, hide your actors, hide your reality stars. By the way, that also, I'm sure it's going to affect those people's residuals because that's part of, how you get paid is them showing that stuff over and over. And when it's gone, it's gone. We're seeing that with video games too. We're in danger right now. So many video games are getting deleted from their various storefronts, and there becomes no place to buy them because many of them, especially now, where most of them don't have a physical component. Well, so many of them are just digital.
Yeah, it's that way with a lot of entertainment. We were talking before that it goes all the way back to the iPod, really, where you buy music, but it kind of stays within the Apple sphere. And they even made it difficult to move it off that device onto your computer onto another device or whatever. Right? Even though it's stuff you paid for and it's still going to be on an Apple device, there were still all these hoops to jump through to move stuff around. Like the number of people that bricked different pieces of technology trying to move music is
Yeah,
ridiculous, right? Like that was a thing. And it unfortunately hasn't gotten any better because what was that, like 2006 or something when we got the iPods? And
sounds right.
we're still dealing with that today, just with music on different platforms and movies on different platforms and now video games, right? Because video
Go ahead
games are
and
almost
call.
all digital.
Yeah, go ahead. Call me a boomer. I'm about to go get my vinyl records, my DVDs, all that stuff. My board games of all Super Nintendo games. So I had to go through all this nonsense.
Dude, I thought you were about to say you were going to get your Zune and be a real boomer. But
I think I never had a Zune,
me
so
neither. I
that
saw
was
them though. Those were the Microsoft product that was trying to compete with the
yeah. I don't think a lot of people had a Zune. That's
well, it
why.
I don't think the Zunes even came out until like 2009 maybe or
They were
2010. Like
way behind.
they
They
were
were.
way later after like iPods were literally everywhere. They had to have had like 80% of the market at some point. They
Yeah,
were
and
everywhere.
this keeps happening to Microsoft. Like Bing, Bing is in the same situation. It came way late to the
Yeah.
party. Google at this point probably has 95 or 96%
The
of
the
the
only
search
reason
engine margin.
the only reason Google probably wouldn't have Macs is because Firefox has some space and I guess whatever Opera or whatever that's on the
Yeah.
like different devices or whatever, like
And you got to figure those are
Safari, I
like,
guess on
those got
Apple.
to be single digit percentages of
Yeah, but
what
I mean,
they
but
have.
those together are probably eating up some number. But yeah, Google obviously has the overwhelming percentage.
Yeah.
But
But they still put Bing out there and
yeah,
just really tried to. I don't know who's in charge of some of these decisions at Microsoft.
yeah, the content thing is tough though, and I don't know. Like we talked about it, like an idea I think would be if they're worried about people just wholesale. downloading and sharing and circumventing the streaming service, then at least limit the amount of info you can download. Enough to download like 4 movies or 1 show or something every month or something, right? Like, so then if you do have something you really like, you can at least get a copy of it, put it on your hard drive, and you have access to it for later. And if you do
I
that,
keep hearing about all these people sharing content, sharing accounts. If I may sum in the spirit of Jerry Seinfeld, who are these people? Nobody outside of my house and my immediate family has any of my passwords. So
oh, I can
it's
tell you,
just,
guilty for
oh,
real.
okay.
Like
You're the one.
I got 2,
You're the
3
one got all these
friends,
people cracking down.
but but here's the thing, right? Like, I want to watch like one thing on Paramount Plus. Like, I don't want to pay for Paramount Plus to watch one show and be done with it in like
You
3
get a
days.
free trial. You get a week free trial and binge watch it that week.
But the thing is, I'm gonna want to watch one thing when, like, I don't know, say the next season or the sequel or whatever comes out. Then it's like I'll watch for 3 hours and then I won't watch it again. And it's just like, all right. So in exchange, they can
Hey,
have
wait,
my
Mister
password to my
Mister, pay for your
Disney
magic
Plus.
cards and don't use proxies. Pay your actors when you watch, Star Trek or whatever. Give
Honestly,
them $9 for a month and then watch it.
I probably should. But when I have everything else already piling up, I'm just like, hell, I already have all these other services. I'll just let people watch those. Like, but yeah, I got, because right now I have access to Hulu, Disney, ESPN, but that's all kind of one package. Peacock, because I get that through Comcast, because if you have Comcast internet, they give you Peacock for free. And I feel like I have like one more that I pay for. I don't even remember, but I have like 5 or 6 services right now as it is. And honestly, I think that's the worst thing that's happened to us, even among the streaming stuff, is now people in some cases are getting less than they would have had they just paid for cable, you know, and paid their like $120 a month or whatever it was. But now they're paying that much or more to have a limited selection, even though it's kind of a la carte, which is kind of crazy that we got into the situation. So yeah, I don't know
We've
how.
done that, and we're still not paying because cable had got up to 200, and we just sat down like, okay, seriously, how many? And then I think recently when we were on one of our hospital stays, the hospital had cable, and it's just out of 100 and some odd channels, there was maybe 3 my son wanted to watch anything on.
Yeah, that was my thing when I cut the cable. As far as like what I was watching regularly, I think there was only one thing we couldn't through Hulu. So I'm like, well, I guess I'll just go with Hulu then. I'll
If
cut my
cable
cable
wants
bill in
to remain
half.
relevant, they got to quit doing all these exclusive deals and let me, like again on the basic. I think it was Dish Network cable package. There had to be 50 channels I don't ever watch. Let me trade those in for another sports channel,
Dude,
another
literally, here's the
cartoon
solution.
channel.
Just give me a price per station a la carte, or groups of stations that I could buy a la carte. Then I'd probably be on cable. Because then I say, you know what? I want these couple things. I got to watch football during the football season. I want these things for basketball season. I want these couple for some cooking shows. I want some outdoor stuff. We'll get these, some Animal Channel stuff. And then, like, yeah, I'll take this other package of like 5 or 6 stations because I like one of them in there. It only costs me an
That's the
extra
problem,
$2
though.
a month,
Those
right?
things end up being a Trojan horse for things like NBC trying to reboot G4.
Well, yeah, of
Like the
course.
majority of
Yeah.
people paying for cable didn't want that, shouldn't have to pay for it.
Yeah, that's my thing. But if you at least let me actively go, okay, I will accept that because I want these other 2 networks that are in that package, and it's only going to cost me an extra $1.50 a month, I'll take it. But if you're
I'm
just
like, nah,
putting it,
if your network, to
but if
me,
you're
if your
just
network can't stand by its own, don't
no,
package
but
in
I'm
with other
okay with
stuff.
that if I get to choose that. If you're just sticking it in there and then my price just goes up $2 or $3 for something I'm never going to watch, I'm like, well, then I don't want it, right? And
Yeah,
I
that's
think
how
that's
it
what,
currently works.
yeah, and that's
Is
what got a
cable
lot of
is
people on cable. Like, why
Cable
people
is the
left.
Trojan horse where if you want ESPN, you got to take G4 and the fishing channel, golf channel. Please take.
Yeah,
I'm sure there is somewhere there are enough people to support the golf channel. I was not one of them.
I honestly think if they did that though and they moved a la carte, you would have a lot of people drop streaming services
Yeah,
quickly.
I think you definitely would have that.
Like that, and that's always been my way. If cable wants to get back, that's the way to go. And just say,
Yeah.
all right, cool. Because right now, how many like a lot of people that have 3, 4, 5 streaming services, a lot of times it's because you really just want like 3 or 4 things on each one of those. But you're taking it because like my favorite show on this network's over here. I like this series they make over on this thing. So like you got to have 3, 4 services to watch everything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge nerd, so Paramount, I want all the Star Treks all the time. So yeah, I'm always gonna want Paramount. Disney, yes, I'm a huge Disney. That's where all the Marvel stuff is. So yeah, I'm
Yep.
gonna always have Disney. Now the other stuff, like okay, some of that stuff probably is gonna. Well, my wife, for example, she loves all. In fairness, I watch true crime shows too, but she watches true crime and then all the reality shows, like all the little. I don't know what it is with my wife and the little people shows, but it's not just her. She ain't the only one watching those shows.
Bruh,
There's a bunch
dude,
of shows.
let me tell you, like, man, that's a rabbit hole. I like the whole true
Yeah,
crime thing. That's a phenomenon that is nuts. Like, I mean, and especially among women, like so many love that I talk to love the true crime stuff. Don't know why, but it's definitely a thing. Like that, man. I feel like I could do a whole episode just exploring that, honestly.
right.
But let's talk about what did we learn, because I think there's a couple of interesting things here. Yours is more serious, mine's more funny. So you go
Yeah.
ahead and take the lead here.
Yeah, Insomniac Games got hacked recently. For anybody that doesn't know, those are the makers of Spider-Man, the Spider-Man series of games. They're working on a Wolverine game, which apparently screenshots for Wolverine have been leaked now. They've also leaked that Wolverine, I guess, is the first game of what's going to be at least a trilogy for the X-Men games. And it's terrible. Yeah, sure, it's fun to know what's coming, but they also apparently got a lot of employee data and are threatening to ransom that data. And of course, let's be honest, these companies, because Insomniac's been hacked, Sony has been hacked. I've lost count of how many times. These companies have a whole bunch of our data. So while you may not care about whether Spider-Man got leaked, more than likely, if you played these games, they can, all this agreement, all the things you agreed to play the game, your data, the stuff you didn't read and click on it. Yeah, they got your data. That's in a lot of cases. That's what they are after. That's what's worth a whole bunch of money. Is you get somebody's data. You know what games they like to play, what games they're willing to spend money on, their credit card information, and so on. And data is gold, unfortunately.
I'll say this. One of the things I read recently, which is a really smart idea, because so many of these places have been getting hacked, and even beyond video games, there's been different grocery stores and online sites and whatever. They said it's probably best for the average adult to have, or married parent, union of adults, to have a second credit card available with a low limit, and you use that for the sites that you're not fully certain of, right? And then, so like if you were going to buy stuff on PlayStation, you never need to spend more than like $100 at a time, right? So you get a thing with like
Yeah,
a $500 to $1,000 limit, and that's the card you use for that type of stuff, and you just pay it off
that's
every
actually
month
a good
like you would.
idea.
And then you have your other card, maybe it's a debit card or an actual high
Yeah,
limit credit card or whatever, tied to other stuff. So if you need to go make big family purchases, medical bills, whatever, you use that card for that. And I'm like, man, that's really simple, but really smart. So if
right.
something does happen, you're not going to be in a dispute for more than like a few $100s or $1,000, right? Just, they can't get more than that no matter what they do. And usually that's protected through fraud protection anyway, but it's just less to have to worry about. And I'm like, you
And
know
that
what?
reminds me, the guy,
Mhm.
speaking of hacks, the guy that did the Grand Theft Auto 6 leak, that was,
Yeah.
since we're talking about year review stuff,
Yeah,
did
that was
you
like
see he
6
got
months ago.
life?
Mhm. Okay, wait. Okay, so is that the dude that they like found? They had to go hunt for him, and then they found him, and they had to like hold him at the temporarily at like a, what was it, like a motel while they waited for the authorities or whatever?
And
Because
he did the hack
yeah,
while he was in police
exactly.
custody.
So while y'all that don't know this story, while this dude was, I guess, at a motel, because that's what it sounds like, or it was a temporary holding facility, we'll call it. He apparently had an Amazon Fire Stick. And with his Fire Stick and his phone, he somehow managed to further hack the company, get some other information, and share it with people. And I'm like, this dude was a damn near a savant. Like, I mean, Dude, you're in a room, and they were like,
I
well,
guess technically not even near. Like he's in a prison hospital because they say he is apparently so severely autistic that without treatment, they do not believe he can survive in mainstream society.
well, I think the explanation I read was having gone before the court and before psych evals, he truly didn't understand the harm of what he was doing. And they think on some level he may have been manipulated into some of it.
Yeah.
But so what they're trying to do now is they're keeping him in the facility while they're trying to make sure he's at least cognizant enough to understand why all of this is wrong before they release him back to the public. But that is a wild situation. Like,
And he apparently also, 'cause a lot of people like they still don't get like, okay, yeah, Grand Theft Auto, who was hurt, but apparently he had stalked a couple of women also. So yeah,
mhm.
this guy is a legit threat to society. Because one of the things his lawyers try to argue is that Rockstar wasn't hurt. The Grand Theft Auto 6 trailer is the biggest trailer in video game history. Where's the hurt? But what wasn't reported a lot of places was that he was also a stalker. So yeah, this guy is a threat to society
And
as
that
it
is
stands.
and that is a big misconception when people say, "Oh, well, the leaks don't ever hurt anybody." But the reality is there's whole campaigns that are being planned like 6 months to a year in advance of things releasing, and that's how they're gonna make more money. This huge thing,
Yeah.
get people interested in it, get these celebrities in, whatever it is they're gonna do. And sometimes the thing that gets released early is not even the final product. So you might be getting to see like version 2 of the trailer and stuff in there may not even appear in the game or whatever, right? So now there's that expectation that's not being met.
Not to mention somebody else might be releasing a smaller game that doesn't have that money behind it, doesn't have that publicity, and it just vanishes into the ether because everybody's talking about Grand Theft Auto 6, which won't be out for probably another 2 or 3 years.
Or some people that do have those smaller games see what makes people excited from those trailers or information being released, and they make some version of that of their own and
Yeah.
include it in their stuff. So now the bigger company who've been spending all this time developing a thing don't have that ace in their hole anymore. So like, yeah, there's definitely harm that can come from it. But yeah, that was a crazy
By
story.
the
They took
way, like as we were talking about with the first story, stealing is just wrong and bad. It doesn't. Even if you don't think anybody's being hurt,
I'll tell
stealing
you,
is wrong.
the craziest part of that whole story is them going, all right, we're gonna take away his laptop and his computer and whatever. And then
Right?
like, dude's still like, oh, there's a TV, like
Yeah.
plug in a fire stick and go to town, right? Like that is crazy. That is crazy.
Hacking skills are
Elite,
like something out of a movie.
yeah,
Just
elite. Like it's almost not even doesn't even sound like a real story.
right.
It almost
If you
doesn't.
pitch me this, in a meeting, I'll give him at least a MacBook or something.
Yeah,
This is
she'd be like, so this
believable.
dude's like the MacGyver of hacking, right?
Yeah.
Like, but okay, so that serious story aside, I came across one of the weirdest but kind of entertaining things on Twitter earlier today. And I'm going to find the user's name. So if people want to look this up, but the user's name is HEYLKATME. So, hey, L cat me. They, for whatever reason, started a thread that's basically Lord of the Rings meets Moneyball. So it's Elrond putting together the Fellowship roster, right? And it's a whole series of tweets of things in character and quoting things from Lord of the Rings to make them fit the whole Moneyball script. Which, for those you don't know, Moneyball's a baseball movie. I think, man, who's the main actor in that one?
Brad Pitt.
Yeah, Brad Pitt. And I think Jonah Hill, I think, is the
Yeah.
co-star in that. But basically, it was based on a real life story of this manager coming in and trying to figure out a way to look at stats and how they're going to spend their money and whatever to get the best team without spending crazy like a lot of other teams were doing.
Because it was the Oakland A's and they didn't have access to
Yeah.
the money that most teams have. Or
So
when you
it's
say
actually-
most teams, teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees have, basically.
Yeah. And it's a cool story and like how it worked and actually had some success with it. Like it's pretty neat. But then taking this concept of, well, okay, what if this was Lord of the Rings and you've got to like recruit this whole team of people to go fight Sauron? Like, how do you convince them to come along? And like, this whole script almost being rewritten, which is hilarious. Like, so yeah, if you want to check it out, and they have like the quotes and then like the screen cap from the part of the movie it is in Moneyball or whatever. Like it's good stuff. It's good. I don't know why it's a thing, but it looks like it started popping up on Christmas Day, and then it's just kind of kept on since. And of course, a lot of people are commenting and hopping in and making jokes, and it's a good, feel good, fun thing to just have on your internet, you know? Like we have all this serious stuff and all these bad things that come through and all the political rhetoric that happens on Twitter. But this was actually a good change of pace. And it's a lot. So if you need to entertain yourself for a couple hours, feel free to go read through that. I think you'll appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. I didn't even get all the way through it yet, and I'm highly entertained with it.
Great.
So yeah, crazy stuff, but it's out there. But all right, I think we're gonna go through and we're just gonna have kind of the Magic year in review because there was a lot of stuff to talk about here. All right, so let's start with the thing that probably created the most controversy with the most non-issue thing, and it's the whole MTG Ambassador Program. Like, this is one that I just didn't get from the get-go when people were mad about it, because you have the one issue of people complaining about Wizards going and getting all these non-Magic creators and stuff and getting them promote Magic. They're like, oh, you should be spending this time and money and whatever on actual Magic creators and helping grow their space or whatever. So then they do.
That is a valid argument.
Sure, but then they do, and everybody says, oh, well, now they're trying to get all these Magic creators in this program so they can tell them what to say and what to do. And it's like, bruh, this is literally what y'all asked for. Like, and then they did it. And it was a lot. They brought it, I think the first round had like 80 creators or something in it. So it was like they were making a real effort, and people were still mad about it. And then there were people making up stuff about how they were going to want all your data and all this. And like, none of that was a thing. I can tell you from being in the program, it literally is just like, hey, this set or this product or whatever is coming out, can you make a social post about XYZ and link it? Can you talk about, or like, hey, this new set's coming out, do a fun video about Ixalan or whatever, right? And some of it is stuff we were going to do anyway, like reviewing the top 10 cards in the set or whatever, right? People that do Commander are going to play the new Commander.
And I think for what they did, they really didn't pick anybody, you know, that does like hardcore investigative journalism on Magic. So nobody, I guess, is having their stuff compromised per se by working with Wizards.
Yeah, and truthfully, even for the things where you didn't feel confident or didn't believe in the product or whatever, you're able to just tell them like, hey, I don't feel good making that one or whatever, and they're like, cool. There's been no issue, no pushback, no problem. They've supplied everybody with a bunch of free product and even cool bonuses that we didn't even plan on, that they were just sending, you know, special kits and custom items that are, well, not one of a kind, I guess one of 80 or whatever, but you know, unique items or whatever. So that's actually really cool. And then they started that whole thing so you can come meet all the creators, and we had special space at the Magic Cons and whatever. So I'm like, this is sort of what you want the program to be.
Yeah.
And,
well, yeah, I mean, you probably would like to be paid. I'm sure.
Well, so that's coming. That's coming.
Yeah.
Like this was the pilot program to even see if it even mattered, if it worked or moved the needle on anything or whatever. And I can tell you, without breaking any NDAs or anything, that Wizards is very happy with the program. They like apparently through whatever multiple metrics they use to measure the success of the program, it's been a success. So totally worth it. And it wasn't even news. Like after like the first month, it wasn't even a thing, right? People wanted to be mad about it, but really, when you ask people why they were mad, they didn't even have a reason. It was just stuff people were making up. And then there were
some people had reasons. I mean, there were, I don't say everybody did, but there
were legitly people who were just making stuff up about the program too, because either they weren't accepted or whatever, you know, that whole thing. And I
mean, again, this is a whole lot of work to do for no money, so that's a valid concern.
Well, here's the thing though, and this is why almost everybody in the company or in the program pushed back, was that it was stuff most of them were going to do anyway, but now they're getting free stuff to do it. You know, because again, like if you're doing Commander content, a lot of them were going to make videos playing the new decks anyway. So now they get the decks for free.
Let's say you work at a comic shop. I was gonna buy those Spider-Man comics anyway, but you still, if I work in a comic shop, are expected to pay me to sell the Spider-Man comics to other people. Not that I wouldn't tell everybody that Spider-Man isn't awesome, because I do that on here all the time. But if I work for you, it's,
Sort of, but I don't think that's quite the same. I get what you're saying, though. I do. But when I'm already going to do a top 10 video anyway, and then Wizard just says, like, hey, if you do the top 10 video earlier, we'll just give you all the product to do it.
But
All
like we
right,
just talked
cool.
about people that were trying to get you to do some kind of ad for that. They would have cost you like you said, several hours of your time, and they didn't want to pay you anything until you asked for money. And then they said, no, wait, now we can
But
pay
here's
you.
the thing they were sending me is no value. Right? Again, if you're sending me a thing, if I was already going to need a, let's say, gaming chair, and you send me a gaming chair and save me $300, then I made $300 for a thing I would have wanted or needed anyway. In this case, again, I'm already making a magic video, already doing the thing, and you're sending me a multiple $100 package of a thing to do the video like a week earlier. All right, cool. I'm down. But it's also the value of the product, right? If you're going to ask me to do a thing that you're going to use for advertising, and it's a microphone that only costs, like, I think theirs was like $35. Well, then, like, that's not really any level of compensation. And I'm also doing a thing I wasn't normally going to do as well. So you're asking me to do extra work, and you're sending me a thing that has no value, effectively. Now, if it was a thing I was already wanting to review, like, let's say, because I use Elgato microphone, like, say Elgato had a new version of this that I was thinking about buying, and Elgato's like, hey, heard you were going to buy this anyway. How about we send you a free one and you do a thing? Then I'm okay with it, because it was a thing I was going to buy. So I saved, I assume the new version would be like $200 that I wasn't going to spend anyway. So, or I was going to spend, so now I don't have to spend it. So it's all about the content you're doing and your schedule and the cost of the actual items. But I didn't have a problem with it, and a bunch of other
Yeah,
people in the
and
problem
again,
didn't
everybody,
either.
is going to have their own stance. Like, for
Now,
example,
again,
like you.
money is coming. Like, I also understood this was a pilot program, and there were going to be a lot of things that had to be worked out in year
But
one.
was that widely known? Like, I didn't hear anything about that.
No, and it wasn't known, and it's still not known for a lot of people, and I'm okay with that. I don't think it matters if it does or not. Truthfully, there's people that do a lot of brand deals for a variety of different things, and that's okay. I think the bigger issue I had is people just making up the idea that Wizard was going to control the content and the narrative, and then that Wizard was going to want
Well, I
all
mean, you
their
do have to
data.
get your stuff approved, right? You can't just go off and say whatever you want. They do approve your content.
Sure, but it's not a narrative controlling thing. Like, we're not making.
If they're approving your
No, no,
content,
no.
how are they not
No,
controlling the
because
narrative?
listen to what I'm saying. Because it's not a thing that requires a narrative, right? Like, if I'm doing a top 10 card review of Ixalan, that's just a matter of, like, hey, they're not checking for what cards you like or don't like or which ones you're highlighting. They're checking because they need to make sure that if you say you're talking about Arena, you say Magic the Gathering Arena or MTG Arena and not Magic Arena, because that's a brand issue. So they need to have that not in the video. Like, that's what they're checking for. It's not the content itself. Just as long as you're talking about Ixalan and your favorite cards, they don't care. Like, that's what most of the stuff was. It was like, hey, we know you're a Doctor Who fan. Here's some extra stuff if you want to make some Doctor Who videos or whatever. Like, all right, cool. They already know you're a fan. You're going to like it, whatever. Have some extra free stuff. Go talk about it. And we'll share your stuff or give you the stuff early so you can have your video up before everybody else, right? And that's the other benefit of working with
Now,
Wizards.
can you do a list of like the 10 cards that you hate? Why was this card made?
Sure, but that wouldn't be branded content. I can still do it, and I still post it on my YouTube channel, because I can always do my least favorite cards or the cards I hate from the set or
But
whatever.
then, okay, now you are controlling the negative, because there won't be any videos talking about the cards
No,
that you
no, no, no,
don't
no, no,
think
no, no,
work
no, no, no,
right.
no, 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 no. Again, that's not MTG Ambassador content. That's just on my channel. That's not sponsored content, whatever. Anything that gets the ambassador tag has a specific purpose. It's tied to a campaign. There's a thing there. But I can still put whatever I want on my channel. I can still talk about whatever I want on the podcast. Hell, we have been talking about whatever I want on the
Yeah.
podcast. So that hasn't changed, right? So, like, that's still separate. That's just when we need something promoted, we would like to use creators to promote it. That's basically what the program was, and really nothing else. And if you don't agree or you don't want to do a thing, there's no pressure to do a thing. You just tell them, hey,
I
I'm
feel
telling
like
you, I'm telling you from the inside, there's not. I don't know what else you
But
want me to
again,
tell you.
you have 20,000 subscribers. What if somebody with 1,000 subscribers might feel a little pressure, even if there isn't any applied? They might still feel it because they still feel like a lot of their worth
But that's
is
but that's
tied into the
working
program.
but that's working with any brand. Like, you make that decision. Like, I can't control somebody's feelings. Like, I mean, if you go work with any company on any brand, like, at some point, you will always be some level of a face of the brand, right? If they're promoting you as a equivalent of an ambassador, whatever that happens to be, right? Because they all have different titles, they call it different things. Like, that's always going to be some level. Like, I can't just run around and just, I don't know, say that Magic's a giant crap show every chance I get or whatever, because then there'd be no point in me being the ambassador program. Like, at some point, it would be
I mean,
completely
if you
disingenuous.
back up, now depending on the content, I wouldn't necessarily say crap show. But if you are able to point out, like again, like let's say you pick the 10 cards that don't work the way you feel like they should work. That's not saying it's a crap show, but it's
Oh yeah, and that's fine, but I can still do that. Like, I have done that. I even did a video trying to make a card work that I knew was bad, and then got to the video and I'm like, nope, this card's still crap. And just like, and that was okay. Like, it's up there, it's still up there. People at Wizards have seen it, and there's been no backlash about it. Right. So you could still do that. I think you have to just be, you'd have to really, I don't even know how to best describe. You'd have to just literally be being a bad representative of the game in some way for them to not want you in the ambassador program. But again, that's working with anything. Again, same thing with my pane glasses deal, same thing with cool stuff, same thing, whatever. Like, there's always the, I don't know if you want to call it morality clause or something that rides in there when you're
yeah,
working with somebody. Like, that's unavoidable. But like I said, I was more bothered by all the just made up stuff. I mean, there was literally two people I saw that said, "Well, we turned down being in the program because of these reasons." And I know 100% for a fact they were not even offered to be in the program. But, they'd already posted it. There was already like 50 responses, whatever, like, perception's greater than reality. And I ain't going to go jump in and talk about other people's business, so it's whatever. You know, it's fine though. Like I said, it's been good. There was a lot of learning for a lot of people, I think, in the program. I think it worked because it also helped a lot of creators get extra following and extra views because they were able to have the first videos on a lot of stuff, which is a big deal for a lot of
yeah,
people. So some of these, especially for some of the Commander channel, because there's so much Commander content lately, for them to be able to have up like the day a set goes live or the cards get previewed, hey, we have the first look gameplay of with these new decks or whatever, and they're able to get a 20,000 view video now or whatever, whereas maybe they got like 8 or 10, right? So it's had a lot of benefits for a lot of people. At least the ones that like put in the real effort in the program have seen some growth from it. So it's pretty good, and there's a lot of stuff coming down the pipe for next year too. Other thing that got people fired up was when Wizards decided they were going to change the open game license for D&D. That was a big deal. And that apparently cost them something like, what was the number? Like 20% of their subscriptions or something on D&D Beyond or whatever. Like, a whole bunch of people jumped ship
yeah.
over that. Yeah, that's one I really don't get, to be honest, why that was even a thing they wanted to change. Uh,
They clearly didn't anticipate the backlash because they ended up back. So I'm sure had they
it wasn't
realized
even a
how
week.
bad that was going to be, yeah,
Like, it
that was
wasn't
one of
even a
those
whole
that
week.
they effed around and they found out. As the saying goes. See?
Like, to me, that's a weird one because usually when I don't agree with a company's decisions, I can at least go like, all right, but even from a greed factor side, I at least get why you're doing it, right? This one I didn't really get because I'm like, the upside is so small, right? Because remember, it was based around like, if your company was so big or you sold so many copies or whatever, you were going to have to pay a percentage. But like, that was only a handful of companies.
We've talked about how
Like,
even though this company has a lot of unforced errors.
yeah, like, now I get it. If you did your research and you found out it was apparently like, I don't know, 500 companies out there making a whole bunch of money because of your D&D
Yeah.
license or whatever, then all right, cool. You're talking about maybe a couple $100,000 at the end of the year, even at like a few percentage points from everybody. But if you're not getting that, like, you're barely even going to move the meter on the bottom line. So why risk even upsetting everybody? Now, as the year went on, we had a good D&D movie. Baldur's Gate came out, whatever, D&D was fine, Wizards made a bunch of money off D&D. But you do have to ask yourself the question of how much more money would they have made had you not had that error back in the spring? You know what I mean? Like,
Valid question.
it's a pile of money, but could have been a pile of money plus 10%, or whatever, if you didn't have that snafu and that
Yeah.
negativity, right? Because
Might have saved a few jobs,
also true, could have saved some jobs, as we saw at the end of the year. And as I do. There's a bunch of people who are like, I'm gonna boycott, never play D&D, and then they probably played like 100 hours of Baldur's Gate or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So whatever.
They're
But
playing D&D now every month. D&D's empire expands.
yeah,
You got to now play Baldur's Gate. You got to obviously now play the role playing game.
yep.
D&D's its reach is growing.
Yeah, that was a tough one. And again, that's just one where you just went, there's no benefit here. Like, why are we even bothering? Like, that's why even when I heard it and I read the specifics, I was like, there's got to be more here that just I'm not seeing, because this doesn't make any sense. And apparently it didn't make sense. And a week later, they were like, nah, you guys are right. We probably shouldn't have done this.
Yeah.
We did have the sad news, and this was just back in August. God, it feels like it was so long ago. But Sheldon Menery passed, who's the grandfather, the godfather of Magic Commander. And that was one that shook up a lot of people. It was pretty bad, myself included. But it was pretty rough. But he'd been battling cancer for hell as long as I could remember at this point, it feels like.
Yeah.
So just one of those things caught up with him. But what he was the Magic equivalent of the most interesting man in the world. Like, truly. Like, you could have any conversation about anything, and it was seemingly he knew about it. And the stuff, like, he could remember and recite, and his military adventures, and whatever. It was just crazy. So it was cool to see everybody at least have a moment where everybody came together, and like, even people that didn't know him were like, yeah, at least I understand his importance. This is kind of fucked up, right? Like, this is a thing.
Yeah.
So that was cool. Then we had the one that got people riled up for the better part of like 3 weeks. The Pinkertons got sent to a dude's house. Like, that was a thing.
As I said, so many unforced errors from this company. Kotaku just did their year in review, and again, out of all the positive stuff that happened in Magic, their most clicked on Magic the Gathering related story is the Pinkerton raids, because it's the most WTF Magic story. Like, how did this happen? Why did this happen? Why are they using the Pinkertons, the literal supervillains used in Red Dead Redemption? Because they had to figure out, who can we have the bad guys be that'll make a bunch of unrepentant bank robbers look like the good guys? And they chose the Pinkertons.
Yeah. I mean, and I told you my stance before, like, you still shouldn't have done it. Like, there's other ways we could have went about this. I understand, not necessarily sending the Pinkertons, but I understand the process of why they went the way they did to try to get the information.
Yeah, certainly you want to figure out where leaks are coming from,
Yeah.
who is stealing things, but
and like I said, the dude who did it also was a bit of an idiot himself, like making a whole spectacle out of it, playing up that he knew he shouldn't have had something, but he's going to share it anyway and try to spike all these views on his channel or whatever. And the worst part is, the dude was literally the main character in Magic for almost 3 weeks and didn't do anything to take advantage of it. Like, I couldn't imagine having that much free press by literally.
Well, again, he's, we don't know how long he's been doing this.
Oh, a long time. Like, he's minimum 4 years. But from my understanding, he was even doing stuff before that. But his YouTube stuff, he's got videos that go 4 years back. And I'm just like, dude, you had an opportunity. Like, basically all of tabletop gaming, at least for the better part of the first week, was talking about it, linking to your stuff, and like, just went nowhere. His latest stuff, he's getting 200, 300 views. I'm like, dude, you had the whole world's eyes.
I mean, that doesn't magically make him better at YouTube. Just,
I
agree. What he's doing is what he's doing.
If anything, I want it to be a lesson to people, just like, just getting eyeballs isn't enough. You know, because I'm sure on some level he's like, oh, I'll have this first, even though I'm breaking the rules. I don't care. Everybody's going to talk about it. It'll be cool, and then I'll get all these
So he
subscribers and
was
viewers.
right to take the shot. Yeah.
I mean, if you can take advantage of it, you know,
Even if you because before you take the shot, you have no idea whether you can or not. You
but
before you
have a
take the
plan.
shot, you don't know whether it's going in.
But
But you
have a plan.
still
Have a plan. That's all I'm saying. Even if it's a
and he
bad
may have had
plan.
one, it just may not have worked.
No, he didn't do anything different. He did not have a plan. Like if he did, it's the worst plan of ever. like like if you look at his content, there is nothing different, nothing new. He didn't even change his schedule up. He didn't change his background, his presentation. Literally nothing changed. And I'm like, dude, if you're gonna take a chance, like, and not just Magic, if you want to do a video game video and you're taking a chance, like we're talking about somebody, you're gonna spoil something or that you got your hands on you weren't supposed to or whatever, and you know you're severing ties with that company at that point. You're severing ties with related brands that work with that company, right? Any leagues that work with that company, because you're going to be tainted goods to them, right? They can't work with you because of the business relationship. So you need to get as much as you can out of that opportunity. You
In theory,
better have something in place.
that's because he doesn't have subscribers. PewDiePie could do something this stupid and they'd work with him again next week. Dr.
Well,
Disrespect could do
to be
this
fair,
something like this,
there's a
and
lot
they'd
of
work with him
people.
again next week.
There's a lot of people that already won't work with PewDiePie for a few reasons. So I think if they were going to work with you, they're already going to work with you. But when you're small and you're trying to get those reaches and those numbers, like, feel free to take the shot. I get why he did it,
Yeah, there
and
was
I
no reason for
understand.
him not to take the shot. Because again, it'd be different if he stole it, but somebody, I guess, sold him something that they probably
Well,
weren't supposed to have.
I have theories that he knew he was
With
involved in the
theories,
process, but
we got
I
no proof.
understand. But just saying because I know how the chain of things works, I'm pretty sure he knew exactly what he was getting and probably had it pre-planned. That said,
But why isn't he in jail if that's the case?
well, because you're not breaking any law. Like, there's no laws being broken. No official, like, by the letter in a
Well, I mean, if you
document
know
anywhere.
something is stolen and you buy it, you absolutely have
No, no,
broken
no,
the law.
no. Like, it could still be purchased through the plan and somebody else stole it and they won't be the ones being punished, like, at the source at Wizards. Like,
But
I'm
if
pretty
you
sure.
know something is stolen, that's still a charge that can be brought up against you.
If they can prove 100% that you knew. Or if it's even worth it to pursue you in the case, because if they get the person who's doing
Also
the stuff at the
true.
top, they'll just
Yeah.
deal with the person at the top, right? But yeah, the fact that his channel
I've
went
seen that
nowhere
happen
from it.
before in police reporting. We're not trying to encourage crime. We're just telling you things that we have encountered in our travels. And yeah, there are for some businesses. Well, like I said, you got to hire a lawyer. So
Yeah.
there are cases where somebody has stolen something that's worth $200 or $300, and okay,
Well,
yeah,
yeah, the
it'd
1
be
hour's
worth
time of the
more.
lawyer is going to cost you more than that.
Exactly. So yeah, and then I also am familiar with the case where somebody, I guess, overestimated or underestimated what the limit was, stole something, and did end up in trouble because they went over what the limit was that you can steal comfortably and the company won't bother to pursue you. So yeah.
Yeah, this is so even pulling up his stuff on Social Blade, he had the obvious spike in the month of May or whatever, whenever all that went down, which obvious, right? After that, immediately back down to where he was before in views. Like, I don't even know if that's a hair up. No, not really. It's basically the same numbers. And then a spike in subscribers again for the month of May, like you would expect. And then immediately back down to 0 to 10 subscribers a month gained. So, like, literally nothing. Like, went from a spike of 4,000 because of that and then nothing. You know, spike of views for the channel to like 250 down to 13K. You know, like, so that's sad for all that caused. But
Mm.
that being said, again, still think we didn't have to send the Pinkertons, you know? Like,
Exactly.
we
That's the story here.
we could have found somebody else. Like, don't be wrong, I understand the history, I get why they used them, whatever, but like we still could have found somebody else,
Yeah.
right? It's at least
And they
to,
haven't
to go
ever.
to a normal person's house, right? Like,
Yeah.
I almost like, again, still bad dudes, but like I almost understand if you're like, hey, okay, we're gonna send the Pinkertons to like this distribution company we work with or
Yeah.
whatever, right?
That
But
would
like to just a dude's house, like, uh, I mean, there's got to be some other investigative group or PIs or something, whatever you could see. You know what I mean? Like, there's got to be
You
somebody.
probably could have called him on the phone and just said, "Hey, this is Wizards. Where'd you get this stuff from?" And I'm sure he'd have told you. I mean,
Maybe,
you
probably,
probably didn't need any law enforcement professionals or like Pinkerton's people that aspire to be law
sure,
enforcement
sure.
professionals.
I don't. I feel like you're probably still better off sending some because remember, and I think I explained this before, but part of the reason you send people anyway is you're also trying to get the wrappers because the wrappers in the boxes all have codes that are scanned and trackable all the way back to the source. So you're trying to get those before they get thrown away or picked up by sanitation or whatever. So you do need to send somebody physically in those scenarios because that's a key part of the information. But I don't think you need to send those particular dudes. I think you could have sent other
Yeah.
people and handle it. But yeah,
And I guess are they still? That's the thing that kind of I guess kind of got lost in all this. Are they still contracting with Pinkertons? I have not heard,
my assumption would be yes. Like,
and that's horrible.
I
And
mean,
that's a part of the story
they
that
have been
really.
for decades, so I would assume they still are.
Yeah, and
I
that's
mean,
just that's really unconscionable,
I
and
don't
it,
know
it
if we're
makes
ever
it.
going to know the answer, but that's just my assumption.
Oh, I mean, I
Like,
guess next time something gets stolen, one of the reasons you use Pinkertons is because they leave,
and
handprints, jackbooted thug prints in
and again,
people's
if we're
bags.
sending it to high dollar, high value, whatever, like I at least almost understand the assumption of needing
Yeah,
them, but like
the
not to a
Pinkertons
dude's
are an
house.
implied threat.
But you don't
Not
need
even
that to a
implied.
dude's
They
house.
are,
Yeah.
they are corporate America's
But that being
iron
said,
fist, if you will.
multiple people throughout there asked me why I didn't make a bigger deal of it. It's like because the dude who did it was an idiot. Like I can
Which
only
he still has human rights, is the thing.
no, I
Regardless
understand.
of how big an idiot he
I
is.
understand, but it's still like I can only have so much sympathy if you're doing a thing you know is wrong and it's the F around and find out. Like I can only have so much sympathy for you. And I know that's me. That's a me problem, and I'll go down with
Yeah.
the ship on it, but that's just how I feel about it. But then we also still had a thing that got for real buried under everything that we're still in the middle of trying to get through our first 3-year standard. Like that was a thing that got announced and like, hey,
I don't
standard's
think there's
moving to
enough
three
people
years.
playing standard for for it to have become a thing.
Well, actually, that's funny because it actually is starting to become a thing. It's real slow to get wound up, which not a surprise by anybody's really.
Yeah.
But you're now starting to see where I think they're bringing back these things called standard showdowns that you'll be playing in your local game stores. They had like the game days for each set are now going to be standard. The recent RCQs are standard. So like they're getting people back in the groove of playing competitively for prizes, making some promos that if you go to local stores and play, you get these things.
Yeah.
They started some programs that I think like if you play so many events throughout a month, you get something on Arena, like some amount of experience or something. So like they're trying some stuff, trying some
Yeah,
things.
because that's been part of the problem. Is that like if you Google Magic the Gathering standard, I'd say at least 50 to 70% of what you pull up is going to be thick pieces talking about people trying to fix standard.
Yeah,
That's
but
what.
I just think though because of the pandemic, people just didn't have a reason to play standard, right? Because we weren't doing in-person PTQs, there weren't really
Yeah.
any regional qualifiers, whatever. So there wasn't a reason. So you just played on Arena, and then you just played like Commander or Modern or whatever with your buddies because those are the cards you already had. And people
And
buying.
there,
Mhm.
I was gonna say that them switching standard to 3 years is acknowledgement that yeah they know there's problems. They're trying to work on these problems and are getting a 3 year swath of data. To I'm sure at some point, if more changes need to be made, they will make more
Yeah,
changes.
it's always been a thing that and I think Pokemon even has a 2-year standard and some other games, of course, just adopted that as being the thing to be normal. But I think that works when your whole community is already into the format, right? I think when you're trying to fire it back up, you almost need as many cards as possible to be playable so people are willing to try it. Because a bunch of people didn't buy a lot of stuff throughout the pandemic, right? They bought maybe a set that was interesting to them or whatever, a couple of commander decks or something, but they didn't have a lot of just what you would call standard playable cards for 60 card standard, right? That wasn't a thing. So going like, hey, let's just make it 3 years. People have more time. If you buy anything now and while you're trying it out, cards are still good for another couple years. And we'll see where this goes, right? But we're now kind of in the middle of that third year now. So it's like we haven't even got to our first rotation yet, really.
Yeah.
And we're kind of getting to see, okay, now I believe the next set would be the first one that had any amount of development time from when they might have been thinking about making it a 3 year standard. And then for sure the next set will. So we'll start seeing then kind of what cards they put in there, how they want cards to overlap from previous sets or whatever. But I honestly think when we get to this time next year, there's going to be a lot more people playing standard. And I think it's just because they're making the concerted effort of just like, hey, we're going to give you these promos, but you have to run a standard event to give them away, right? We're going to do these qualifiers, but they have to be standard format. And I think that's going to get more people working on it. And I've seen some people talking about it, at least some people trying to start some discords to work on testing some decks. So you're starting to see it, but I think it's still going to take a bit longer. I think we still need a good 6-8 months. And one of the biggest things is this will be the first time we've had the whatever they call them, the standard challenge decks or whatever they put out in the spring that could help feed people into standard. Because the last time we had them, we were kind of, I guess, moving into the pandemic, so to speak, so they didn't really sell. And then we did some non-standard ones, I think, after that. But we haven't had this 3-year rotation trying to fire up standard with those decks being purchasable. Because if you could walk in and spend $20, $25 on a standard deck and maybe need to spend 15, $20 to upgrade it, way more people are going to be willing to try it at that point because they don't have to build a whole fresh deck. So we'll see where that goes. And then the other story of this year that I think was actually really good was just the ultimate, or I guess the Universes Beyond products being really good. I mean, I think we were like, all right, we'll get a full set of Lord of the Rings. We'll see. And then everybody was nutso about it. Like, still.
Because again, it's the difference between Lord of the Rings and Magic the Gathering is zero difference. They're both about wizards, warlocks, and rings and artifacts. And so that one is there was no tonal shift whatsoever. Now, if you don't like Tolkien's books, if you don't like Tolkien's characters, okay, that's fine. But thematically, that one is you can put those cards next to the cards we play with every day, and there is no tonal shift in between them. There's the same thing, essentially.
Still the craziest selling set of the year, like a lot of different products around it. Like it was just well done too. I mean, a lot of the flavor was there from all the right characters.
Right.
Yeah, the artwork was beautiful.
Yeah.
And then
Aragorn was black.
Well, that's true too. We did
had to hate it.
That's true. And not only that, you had like the Asian elf dude or whatever, like that was a thing. So like, but then we didn't even just stop there. Then we got stuff like Doctor Who that was really good. And I tried to tell people I knew Doctor Who was good because I'm not even a full-time Doctor Who fan. And the cards I did recognize immediately made sense. You know what I mean? Like that's how you go like, oh, this was, you could tell for both products, there were fans at Wizards of the Coast on R&D that worked on those products. Like I wouldn't even be surprised if the heads of R&D went, okay, who are super fans of these different brands or whatever? All right, cool. Y'all are going to be the core team.
Exactly. These are two of the nerdiest brands out there. So of course there's going to be crossover.
Oh yeah. And the cards, like I said, the theme, the way they worked within the rules, like everything felt exactly right. Like there wasn't.
This one felt like it had some of the least pushback because, like Walking Dead, Walking Dead was already like pun intended. The franchise, or at least the core franchise, was already shambling toward the grave by the time that project came out.
I think also Walking Dead was also the new one. It was like the first time. You know what I mean? So it's like that's all. Anytime something's first, a lot of times there's that weird reaction because like, well, what does this mean? How often is this going to happen? Are we going to get a bunch of these in the future? There's a bunch of unknowns that people are willing to just jump to conclusions, I guess, on what's going to come from it. But I think by the time we got to these, we'd already had 3 years of Secret Layers or whatever at that point. So we're kind of like desensitized to it a little bit. It was more just, is this going to be decent? Because
and it's and Who is not as big a tonal shift because Who has Well, what did Arthur C. Clarke say? Sufficiently advanced technology
Yep.
is indistinguishable from magic.
Yeah.
And the doctor is always flying around medieval times. See, if you don't know any better, the doctor is a wizard, as far as you know. He's
And
got a box. It's
I will also say I feel like last year was like when we got the 40K decks, felt like the perfect test bed of
yeah,
if we can make this work in in Magic, we can get all these other licenses to work, right?
yeah,
Because while there's some magic in 40K, obviously a lot of it's military guns. There are
yeah.
demons and things, so there's that. But that worked out great, and people were super excited about it. And I was like, okay, and that kind of gave everybody the confidence of, okay, now we want to see what they do with Lord of the Rings. Now we want to see what they
Yeah.
do with Doctor Who. And then,
And all the creatures that exist, they don't say all, but a lot of the creatures, such as werewolves, vampires,
yeah,
they exist in the Doctor's universe. They're just aliens.
yeah, that's exactly
But
it.
the average person on the street doesn't know that they're a Cyberman or a Dalek or whatever. They're just like,
But
it's a
even then,
vampire, it's a
they were
werewolf, it's
also
whatever.
they were also smart though because they took stuff like dinosaurs on a spaceship, right? And
Yeah.
going, well, our next set has dinosaurs in it, right? So now
Right.
there's some cards you want to go after if you're one of those people who wanted the dinosaurs from Ixalan or whatever to play them in
Yeah.
your commander deck or whatever it is. So a lot of that stuff was so smartly done. I mean, just even the crossover with Jurassic World, right?
Yeah.
Like that was cool. Seeing the characters that you knew from the movies on Magic cards that thematically made sense. So it's like, for as much as people were questioning, I think Universes Beyond, that to me feels like a real win for the year for Magic of just these things came out, and now we've moved from the world of people not being sure to now people that are fans of these properties are excited. Like the number of people, like we talked about, that are going to be excited about Fallout decks coming next year, right? Because now you're like, oh, I saw what you did with Doctor Who, I saw what you did with Lord of the Rings. Like, if I'm a fan, I'm like, hey, you're gonna treat me right on this Fallout stuff, right? Like, like
Yeah.
so until one really flops, I mean, we got to give credit where it's due. They're hitting it out of the park. And then we find out we still have uh Final Fantasy coming. We've still got
Yeah.
Marvel coming, like there's some big hitters still down the pipe that man, Magic's gonna make a lot of money off those things, man.
Yeah, they are.
All right. So with all that being recapped, we're going to hit the dinner table with the fun question. And now you've had some time to think about this. What would you say is your craziest or most interesting gaming story of the year?
I think the thing that we keep coming back to, and we just dealt with it with the Wizards of the Coast, is layoffs. This is a record year. So many companies are reporting record profits, games being bigger than they ever were, yet we're still seeing so many people in the game industry, in the games journalism industry, losing their jobs constantly. Not nearly as many, CEOs or
Yep.
executives
Yep.
losing their jobs, but the rank and file employees that make the games you love are losing their jobs in unprecedented numbers, even while games break phenomenal sales numbers. It's just sad. It's depressing, and I guess something we want to acknowledge because one of the complaints about the Game Awards was that it really wasn't talked about, and it
Yeah.
was kind of bizarre for this to be just obviously you could still celebrate the game industry. A lot of great things were done, but even while people were trying to dedicate to people that have lost their jobs or in some cases lost their lives, they were getting pushed off stage.
Of course.
It
Of
just
course.
and I know it's not a fun topic to talk about, but that's kind of what we do here is we talk about the topics that
Sure.
in some cases a lot of people don't want to talk about, and that's the one that I hate to say it, but in so many ways, layoffs are one of the things that define 2023 in tabletop and in video games.
You know what I'm wondering too? If this is going to lead to, over the next 2 years, seeing more indie developed products, more, independent board game development, stuff like that,
I
with a lot of
certainly
these
hope
people
so.
that have left. Because some of these people, even though they got released, some of them were being paid well. Some have decent nest
Yeah,
eggs. Some were even that upper middle management type area where they were making some pretty good money. So they could have some startup funds if people want to do some of these small projects. I hope we see a lot more of that over the next year
I
or two.
hope people take the risks because that's one of the problems is that
Yeah,
just so many companies are adverse to make something that's not Call of Duty, Madden, something that's a sequel to something that is going to be a guaranteed hit. And I understand that because
sure.
obviously, I'm somebody that plays Call of Duty and Madden. Yeah, they make a whole bunch of money and they are too big to fail. But I
But
also love, great indie game. Somebody that comes up with a game that I would have never in a million years thought that I wanted, and then the game industry
yeah,
does
there was like a crazy game I saw from a couple years, like Secret of Luna. I think is that what that was? But it was like a side scroller that was like telling this story and had like this cool interactive background. But that's not something you would typically see. And I'm like, why aren't we
exactly
making more unique and different games like that? So I'm hoping some of these people that got released from these places go on to work on some
yeah.
projects like that. Because I think that would
And
be
the
really
why is
cool.
people in the game industry is becoming more and more risk averse
Mhm.
because when you know Madden's going to make money. You
Oh
know
yeah,
Call of
yeah.
Duty. You know to some extent. Final Fantasy apparently isn't making as much money as Square wants it to make, but it's going to make money.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough thing right now crossing. I think that's why you are seeing a lot of people kind of go into work for themselves or just like, hey, I'm willing to just do this and I know I'm ever going to make this much money, but my job's secure.
Right.
And it's tough that people have to have that mindset, but
Yeah.
I feel like if not yearly, at least every other year we hear about layoffs in various industries, in big chunks. And it's just corporate America these days, which sucks.
And
But
you see so many of the games that were innovative, like for example, Titanfall. I remember when I first saw that reveal, like, wait, Call of Duty, but your kill streak is a 50-foot stomping everybody robot. Why has nobody done this before? And then I guess we found out why, because it's just two games and it well it, the good news is that they were able to pivot to right as battle royals are becoming a thing. They realized, hey, we've got a universe here, a sandbox that people enjoy playing in. What if we made a battle royal in the Titanfall universe? And so they still get to
yep,
put in weapons from Titanfall and have call outs. And I think one of the new character, the Filipina character that we talked about, part of her outfit is like she's wearing pieces she salvaged from a Titan that saved her village. So
that's cool.
Titanfall still, it still gets out there. We probably are never going to get Titanfall 3. We'll get
Yeah.
those little pieces, in Apex Legends because they hit right as battle royals are becoming a huge thing.
Well, my story that I'm going to mention is probably the biggest we're going to have in Magic for a while. Enough that it made news everywhere. And that was Post Malone buying the One Ring for $2 million. Because I think we all knew it was going to sell and we all knew the card was going to
Yeah.
be collectible. And, people now, I didn't think it was going to be 2 million. But I told people, like, yeah, it could reasonably go over a million. And people are like, no way, nobody's. I'm like, hey, we've had Lotuses at the time that people had paid multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars for. So it's
Right.
like, if you have a thing that's literally one of one, why is that not worth significantly more than a Lotus, right? At that point. And we found out 2 million was apparently the
Yeah.
number that somebody's willing to pay. And,
Also, when you get people like Post Malone who can outbid 90% of the general population,
well, yeah, but I mean, it was probably going to be like him or Hunter Pence or one of these other guys that,
right?
they have these big
There are
contract
people
jobs.
with deep pockets now
Yeah,
playing that.
absolutely. We have a lot of celebrities that play Magic. Hell, what's his name? That was one of the Hobbits. He plays Lord of the Ring or plays
Yeah.
Magic. There's oh man, there's 6 or 7 really big names. Even athletes, like we're
Yeah.
talking about. Cassius Marsh, some of those guys that play in the NFL play Magic. Hell, we had a couple of the Seahawks while he was out here, came to a big tournament
Right.
and played. So yeah, people were going to be able to spend if they wanted it, and it's a thing that there's ever only going to be one of. Like there's not more being produced. It's literally one of one forever. So you
And I
have
guess in 2 or 3 years, we'll get the Infinity Gauntlet.
oh yeah, we'll get something else that will be the new one of one, and
Yep.
somebody will probably only spend like $1 million on it or whatever, but it'll still be a unique piece if you
Do
want
the
it,
six,
right?
that's the 6 stones, do they go for like a million each? I
You
guess
may
we'll
maybe you
find
get the glove for 1 million, but you can get all the stones for like 100K each or something,
Could be.
something like that. but yeah, it's crazy, to think about as much as we talk about, well, value on things is going down and whatever and this, that, and the other in Magic, but then you're like, well, when you make a collectible thing, it's still collectible. And people with money want those unique items. And this was also a thing where I almost felt like even if he didn't get it, somebody who collected Lord of the Rings stuff would probably want it.
Also true.
So but it's one of those things where Posty is a fan. He's connected to the Magic community. He's been on a bunch of people's shows and YouTube channels and whatever. And the person who opened it happened to also be a Post Malone fan.
Right.
So, him getting a chance to meet him and sell it to him was a big deal. So that kind of locked it up from there. Like,
He seems like he's doing a good job too with his money. He just opened because he's from Texas, so he
Yeah.
opened I think his own line of Raising Canes in the Dallas area. So yeah,
he's got investments in a few places from what I understand.
Yeah.
Like,
he
and
does not sound like one of those people that you'll see in 5 or 10 years. Like, oh, what happened to all his money? He's totally broke.
and
I
from as
may be
far as I
wrong. It
can
looks
tell
like he's
too, I don't know that he spins, but he's not like crazy. He doesn't have like 15 Maybachs or anything, like
yeah.
he's not one of those guys. So yeah,
Because especially in Texas, Raising Canes is a dang good investment.
and
Because there seems to be one on every corner
and to be
now.
real, Canes is alright, but you got to get that sauce. If you don't get the sauce, it's not the same experience. It's just not. Like
That's like, Starbucks coffee is just all right, yet there's one on every corner.
Yep. The thing about Starbucks, truthfully, and I'm not the biggest Starbucks fan, but like I get why they're because you can customize to the nth degree your order. And I think that's what carries them a lot of the times, right? But that's a whole different business model.
And now McDonald's is getting into the high price specialty coffee thing.
Dude,
And
I saw that McDonald's has a thing called like Cosmics or whatever that
that's
thing
their
is.
Starbucks.
Which is the weirdest
Cosmics is a McDonald's character that you just forgot about from. He was McDonald's ET ripoff from the 1980s.
Yeah, like because I thought I'd heard the name before, but I was just like,
yeah, they closed the door to the 1980s and left Cosmic in there, but he's back, baby.
Yeah, it's weird. It's just like fancy McDonald's with just a bigger menu. So it's like, okay, sure. But yeah, man, I think this year, 2023, was full of stuff. I mean, we didn't even touch on half the things that happened, it feels like. And that's just inside of Magic and gaming. I mean, there was literally we had government talking about aliens at one point. Like that was a thing. Like 2023 was wild. I mean, I think at some point when we go back and really just look, January 1 to December 31, there's going to be way more stuff that you remember even happened, because it was just thing on top of thing. But with that, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on social media?
All right, I am Brian Psionic on the X and Instagram.
Yeah, I still don't know if I'm down with X yet, but you can always DM X me if you wanted to, though. But
he did that.
Yeah, that's a thing. But yeah, you can find me everywhere at Power Dragon, POWRDRAGN. And as always, wherever you're listening or watching, whenever you are, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Please take care of yourselves and family. And remember to be awesome and be awesome to each other.